changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more, no more complaining. People, their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more, no more.
It came to me yesterday. I was looking at one of the interviews that I did. Now, let me explain to you about this upcoming summit. I know right now we've got 11 people live online. We usually get anywhere from 300 to 5,000 people watching these or listening to these when you combine this as a podcast, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was interviewing Adam Mortimer for Develop Your Potential 2021. I'm going to be the host as well as one of the presenters. And I was so excited because I got to interview these super successful, brilliant teachers, thought leaders, world changers. And I got to be the one to ask them the questions. It's like, there's a JumpStart right there. Who would you interview and what would you ask them? And this got to be my opportunity. And as we were doing this, one of the people that I interviewed is a guy named Adam Mortimer. Now, I know you have not heard of Adam Mortimer. He is a behind the scenes guy because he's a professional coach and he's a coach to some of the super successful. And he's been doing this for decades. And we were talking about visualization. And Adam made a point that just blew me away. And the point was that because we've talked about exercise before, remember that exercise creates energy. It does not use up energy. It creates it. Well, the same is true with your mind. And when you visualize something that is difficult to visualize, when you force your mind to see something that is out of the realm of what your belief system is, it generates more energy because it's more difficult. So think about that. Visualizing something that is outside of what it is easy for you to visualize causes you to actually create mental energy so that over time you become more mentally strong and you create what it is that you desire using the law of attraction. Now, what's interesting and what occurred to me this morning as I was journaling is that visualization, I sound like I'm back in the South. Visualization, no offense, I know my friend John Smith watches and several others. Visualization is not optional. Here's what I mean. One of the things that I know from many of you, having communicated with me, especially now, especially during COVID, many of you having sent me messages, many of you talking to me, knowing many of you personally, is that you struggle with anxiety. Now, what does the word anxiety mean? Fear over an uncertain future. Let me say that again. That is the definition of anxiety. It is fear or worry over an uncertain future. The interesting thing is the future's uncertain for all of us, period, full stop. It is the acceptance of the uncertainty of the future that lies before us all that allows us to remove our anxiety. Also, it is far easy for us to worry about what might happen in the future and to fill ourselves with fear and worry, which is negative visualization. I remember Joe Vitale and I having a long conversation about this one time. I think he was interviewing me for something that worry is negative visualization. What we visualize becomes our reality. And it's easy for us to worry because human beings, as we've discussed, have evolved to have what's called a negativity bias. The negativity bias keeps us alive, keeps us safe. It is the reason that when we look at somebody from a distance, we ask ourselves one of two questions. Are they a potential mate or threat? The mate part we'll set aside for another JumpStart, but we look at everybody and wonder if they are a threat. So we are always visualizing. Visualization is something we do. And we have a negativity bias, which causes us to worry more than to focus on what it is we want. Now, let's come full circle because I want to call this Visual Lies. Today's JumpStart is titled Visual Lies because I was listening to Bob Proctor recently, and he said that it takes no more effort to have a good future than it does to have a bad future. And no matter what we're doing, we're making it up. We're making it up. Let me give you an example. I had written out all my goals for 2020. I was going to get a new car. I was going to get a boat. I was going to travel more. I had actually written down the cities that I wanted to travel. And what happened in 2020? A pandemic came along. So you can't fully prepare yourself for those kinds of things. And those things are so outlandish, you can't really worry about them. All of this comes full circle when we think about the fact that the reason Homo sapiens evolved out of all others of the species Homo, and at one time there were 6 of us here on the same planet just 10,000 years ago, is that we have this prefrontal cortex, which allows us to, which condemns us to, which allows us to, which condemns us to, you get the point, visualize the future. We're always thinking about the future. And we get to choose the future that we want to visualize. I had gotten to the point that I just kind of let go of thinking about the car and the boat and everything like that this morning. And I was in bed meditating before I got up. And at the end, I began to visualize, and I began to visualize the car I know I'm going to get, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I remembered back to a year that was probably it was the biggest year of my life professionally. In that year, my first book deal was a major book deal. I won't go into what all that entails, but it means a lot of money and support. I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show. I got that car that I'm still driving. I met Maya Angelou, and she actually invited me to her home. So those are just some of the things. Okay. Oh, I got a Rolex, which, as many of you may know, I ultimately gave away. I felt guided to give it away, and I did. Anyway, all of these things, and what did they all have in common? I had created a vision board. I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I printed out pictures of the exact car I wanted, Oprah Winfrey about to hug somebody, visualizing it was me, and I sat there and set a clock and did it for 5 minutes every day, and that's all I did. Most of us feel like we're caught in this loop of life that just keeps repeating. It's like a doom loop. And it's because our thinking is caught in a doom loop. You cannot move past your thinking. You cannot have more than you feel you deserve you have. And in fact, as we've talked about, when you look around yourself, what you have is what you value. You may not like some of the things that you have, but it is what you value. In other words, it is where you place your value. You can say my values are health, but you actually value more eating Twinkies late at night or whatever. No, I'm not disclosing about myself. I like to eat M&Ms late at night. Anyway, visualization is not optional. That's what I want you to take away from this today. That is the one thing. If you remember nothing else of what I say today, let it be that visualization is not optional. Before you go to meet with someone to discuss an issue or a challenge or something like that. For example, here's a little thing. I got a shirt back from the dry cleaners the other day, and it had an iron mark right here, like a very distinct, silver burn with the little holes and everything. You could see it was a handheld iron. And when I got it home, it was a brand new shirt. And I got it home and looked at it, and I was like, okay, I've got to take that back. Now, in the past, I would have and I mean past, I would have really dreaded this because I would have gone in saying, hey, look, this is a brand new shirt. I only wore it once, brought it to you guys, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this time I went, then I see it working out great. I like the people at the dry cleaners. They like me. It's obvious. I want to keep this relationship. They do a good job for the most part. And it was a cheap shirt. One of the things I've discovered, some people are not going to like this, but I've had some really expensive custom shirts. And I find that just the $24 Van Heusens are easier to keep, and you just throw them away after 4 or 5 uses, as opposed to wearing these shirts that get more wrinkled, et cetera, et cetera. Well, anyway, once I had decided that I had visualized that it was going to be a good exchange. It was not going to be a challenge. They were going to be supportive. They were going to be understanding. They were going to be totally cool about it. No matter what happened, I was going to be totally cool about it. Once I had done that, then I remembered, you know what? That shirt's actually been ironed twice. It was ironed by them, and it was also ironed by me in the hotel room before I gave my speech. And I was wearing a jacket the entire time. So there's no way I would have known and seen it. So I probably did it. We visualize before we do almost anything. In fact, Wayne Dyer talks about how we visualize before we do everything, basically. You have the thought and then the action. And so the thought is the visualization, and we can visualize it going very, very well, or we can visualize it going poorly. The mind, the ego, wants you to visualize it going poorly. Why? Because it feels like it's protecting you. Let me tell you all the potential things that can go wrong here, okay? And it's not helpful because we loop it then. Instead of saying, oh, okay, got it. If that happens, I will do this. And then we set it to bed. Then we find new things. The mind, your mind, the prefrontal cortex is like a puppy. It always needs something to play with. This morning, when I got up, when I woke up, okay, when I first came to, my eyes first, I wasn't even open. The first thing I thought about is what's on tap for the day? What am I doing today? Right? That's visual. And then I thought, how's it going to go? I'm fortunate that I'm going to conclude our interviews for Develop Your Potential 2021 by interviewing the great Rock Thomas. That's today. So I'm looking forward to sitting down and asking him all kinds of questions about success and about life. But that's the first thing. And I visualized it. Now, you are using this power all the time. It's like the difference between breathing and breathing. What I mean is that you're going to breathe. As long as you're alive, you're going to breathe. And you can consciously control how you breathe and when you breathe. But ultimately, you're going to, go back to how it is you normally breathe. But the more you consciously control it, the more you fall in line with that pattern of breathing. The same is true for your thinking. You are already visualizing your future. Visualize a better future. Do better. Do better. Coach Beard says that on Ted Lasso all the time. That's the most advice he gives a lot of time. Do better. You can do better. So begin to consciously take control back of the car in your head and begin to visualize what it is you want rather than what it is you fear. And in fact, remembering what I cited earlier, that Adam or Mortimer talked about a study wherein they figured out that the more difficult, the more challenging thing you visualize, which is usually the thing you want most. If you don't have it, it's the thing you want most. When you force yourself to visualize it, when you put yourself in that situation, when you see it three-dimensionally, smell, taste, touch, being there, it is so difficult in your brain for you to do that because it's not what you believe, not what you feel like you deserve. When you force yourself, it creates mental energy. You literally become mentally stronger because you're picking up a heavier weight. I could talk about this all day. I am so excited about this. I just want to remind you that you're constantly visualizing, and I want you to begin to visualize consciously starting now.
No more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying.